in continuation of the 12 Days of Doctor Who, I'm moving on to Jon Pertwee with the Season 7 finale 7-parter story, Inferno. Fun fact, this was the first Doctor Who DVD I ever bought. I even got the special edition because I'm special, shut up! It was a great experience, it's one of my favourite classic Who episodes, but it did leave me disappointed. I was looking forward to a great Doomsday story, but instead sat through a 7-part snarking match between the Doctor and Professor Starman. To be fair though, the Doctor has some great insults towards this jerk.
Yes, well, I'll tell you something that should be of vital interest to you, Professor.
But what?
That you, sir, are a nitwit.
And the closing scene of episode 6 is one of my absolute favourites of classic Who. It's got some impressive special effects given it was the 70s. I can imagine many kids had nightmares after watching this. I'd love to see the new series try something like this. So we start off the serial immediately with title music and then BAM! Lava! Get excited, children, for destruction awaits! I don't recall there being the many uses of this alternate type of title sequence in classic Who, but it seems fitting for such a dark episode. Does lava actually move that fast in real life? We also get to hear Jon Pertwee's pipes pump a tune and then watch the red shirt of the week walk off to his inevitable death. Now, because this is such a long serial, there's not a whole lot of point going through it with a fine-tooth comb. Let's just say there's a lot of complaining about computers. But I'm still going to attempt to rip the story in half and roast it. Get it, Inferno? Let's start, however, with a general overview. Inferno follows the Doctor, obviously, and this absolute muppet of a man named Professor Starman as he attempts to drill not to the centre of the Earth, but rather just to the crust. At least he's sensible in that regard, to tap into some sort of magical gas, which of course he names after himself, and he proclaims this gas is going to solve England's energy crisis. Let me say it now, this guy is horrible. He consistently rejects everyone's suggestions, thinks he's smarter than Sheldon Cooper, and would be incredibly racist to Commander Data if Star Trek had existed in this universe. Seriously, he's constantly throwing abuse towards that computer. Looks like someone watched The Terminator. Anyway, the entire time he was on the screen, I just wanted to throttle him. And it is incredibly satisfying when the karma bus runs him over not just once, but twice. More on that later. We are also introduced to a few other important characters. If you've been following the Third Doctor up until this point, you'll be pretty familiar with companion Liz, who does not take flack from anybody. Sir Keith, who seems to be one of the two people in this episode with any sort of common sense. Petra, who we later get to see sport some go-go boots that Joe Grant would probably steal later on. And Greg Sutton, who spends almost every waking moment either expressing his hatred for Starman or trying to light Petra's candle. We are also introduced to Starman's complete lack of health and safety protocols.
Well, I saw the malfunction report on number 2 pipe several days ago. I saw no report of its repair. I assumed you must have overlooked it.
I overlook nothing, Sir Keith. The malfunction on number 2 pipe's not sufficient to warrant a stoppage in the drilling.
If this pipe blew up and the whole drill fell into the earth, he'd probably still overlook it. Behold, the green bubbling goo of doom! What do we do when we see it? Well, if we're a red shirt, of course we'll touch it. Brigadier and the Doctor have a bit of a chat as Benson is putting his time to good use by hammering photo frames into the wall, which I guess is the sort of thing UNIT does when we're not being invaded by aliens every other Monday.
Which one's you?
Well, don't you recognize the one?
No, don't tell me. Let me guess.
This conversation may seem mundane at first, but then...
And within a few hours of your arrival, I have a motiveless murder on my hands.
There's been a murder!
Doctor, why are you so keen to observe this project?
Well, it's a matter of great scientific interest, my dear fellow. First penetration of the Earth's crust? Well, naturally I'm interested.
This is coming from the same dude who's been investing so much time in getting off this planet. Another thing I should mention for new viewers is that watching Classic Who can be frustrating when you use the metric system and have no friggin' clue how long 20 miles is supposed to be. But if it's anything like 20 kilometers though, you definitely might want to get some wheels to get wherever you're going. So after we endure our first snark-off round, the Doctor scoots off to his top secret lab where he's trying to jumpstart the TARDIS so he can go flying off to another vaguely humanoid planet.
Look, without the TARDIS, I feel rather lost. Stranger in a foreign land.
I love this line so much. It perfectly conveys this incarnation and his feelings about how much he hates staying in the one place for too long. Just give him a bag with some TARDIS technology and we have ourselves a new Mary Poppins. But of course, something goes wrong when Starman decides to be a scumbag and cut the power at a crucial moment, and we are taken on our obligatory drug-induced trip through the space-time continuum. I only imagine how they went about filming this. Okay, John, we want you to stand in front of the camera, make as many damn faces you can think of. Squint the eyes, stretch the cheeks, make it look like you've got Play-Doh for skin. It's also very convenient that even though he loses his grip on the TARDIS in the nether space, he still comes back with the console. And despite the fact that he almost got stuck in between dimensions or whatever, this idiot wants to try again! So he runs off back to the drill site, and I will say that it is a bit concerning he's the only one in this entire building who seems to be able to interpret what the computer says. He wasn't even part of this thing to start with, so who the hell's been reading the computer printouts until he showed up? Starman certainly wasn't, that's for sure. Also,
With another murder.
I'm really starting to expect Miss Marple and Jessica Fletcher to burst in on the scene. Liz really gets a chance to show her intelligence in this episode. She makes a great companion, and I wish she'd stayed longer. At least she doesn't scream like Joe usually does. Speaking of the screams, wait until you hear these things scream. Meet the Primoids. You touch the goo and you either turn into a furry or Nicolas Cage. The scorch marks they leave on the wall are also pretty cool. Get it, Inferno? I will admit that throughout this serial, I kept questioning the infection process of this thing. Is it a virus? Does it spread through skin-to-skin contact? What sort of pathogen could cause this? Is it an alien? Am I overthinking this? And now I have to mention how incompetent some of these characters are at realising Starman is a bit of a sneaky barstool. For starters, when he starts displaying the obvious effects of being exposed to the green goo, why does no one bother to declare him mentally unfit? They should have got Dr. McCoy down here to whoop this guy. Does no one see him take out that part of the computer? No one hears the smash? Yes! So the doctor goes off back to his hut, and once again, the power gets cut off. So he goes to the magical disco ball dimension. It's funny how even though he reckons he's a doctor of practically everything,
What are you a doctor of, by the way?
Practically everything.
it still takes him ages to work out that he's in an alternate universe. Except he never calls it that.
I come from a parallel space-time continuum.
Just say parallel universe. Sure, even Mr. Trigger Happy over here could understand that. Also, this bit with the trash can reminds me of Hartnell hiding inside a Dalek. So in this parallel universe, Britain is under a fascist government with the brigade leader in charge of this complex, section leader Shaw, who gets to sport some black go-go boots, and Benson. Hey, we've hired him, we've got to include him in this episode too. Starman is still in charge of the project, except now he reminds me of that guy from the second Matrix movie, and for some reason his transformation into Nicolas Cage takes a lot longer than the original universe. I find it really interesting how they altered the characters using this parallel universe plot device. This version of Starman is actually willing to listen to the Doctor's advice instead of just telling him to sod off. So we see the brigade leader just kinda hovering around. Is he waiting for some sort of monster to appear from the drill head? The Doctor then pulls off a disguise reveal that should put the ending of Mission Impossible 2 to shame when he waits until the very last second to pop out of a suit and tell everyone to shut the drill down.
Listen to that!
0
That's the sound of
minus
this
20
planet
seconds.
screaming out its rage!
Now, I'm pretty sure that ringing is Starman's migraine. Or is it mine? I will take this moment to comment on how impressed I am with the effects in this serial. For starters, they must have dedicated at least a third of the budget toward the smoke machine because it is everywhere. These outdoor explosions are pretty cool, although I feel the further into the serial we go, the more the mutant Mountain Dew begins to look like snot. Perhaps the planet screaming is really sneezing.
How thick are those walls?
Not thick enough. Ferrous concrete, steel plating, asbestos sheeting, the lot. It'd stand up to an atomic blast.
Compared to the forces that you people have unleashed, an atomic blast would be like a summer breeze.
In other words, Earth goes boom!
Boom, 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 boom.
Can I just say that I'm annoyed they didn't allow the brigade leader to get touched by the Primoid. At least then they could have gotten to the solution of this problem faster. I hate this version of the character. He's so stuck up and proud of himself, he might as well have something shoved where the sun don't shine. Although considering I did read that this story wasn't originally meant to be 7-parter, I'm starting to see the padding a lot more easily. I also noticed this mistake, how when Primoid Starman is pushing the door up, you can see that his makeup doesn't go past his wrists. Main characters flee into the leader's office while Paul Benton gets infected, and his screams are legitimately terrifying. And this is where we finally get to some actual action in this action-packed Doctor's era. He has to waste all this extra time explaining to the others how he's not from their world and that he has a way to get home, so the others help him fight off the Primoids to get to where he left the TARDIS. We do spend a bit of time switching back and forth between universes, and in both of them Starman is still being a barstool. In the other world, let's just say they're not really impressed by the TARDIS console.
Well, I thought it'd be a bit more impressive than that.
What did you expect? Some kind of space rocket with Batman at the controls?
To be fair, Batman will almost certainly have had a bat rocket at some point in his history. So Petra manages to get the power running and the Doctor prepares for takeoff, only to have the brigade leader demonstrate his method of persuasion. Can I ask though, apparently Liz Shaw's actress was pregnant during this serial. How did she hide it? We have stacks of shots of her whole body throughout the episodes. That's the reason why we don't actually see her shoot the brigade leader. So unless she had one of those mystical pregnancies with no baby bump appears, this serial must have been shot ridiculously early into her pregnancy. Why am I discussing this? Explosions! I love these shots of the lava. Plus you get a shot of these two men sitting and waiting for the end of the world. Man, this was great! I never realised until I watched the following episodes how much this experience affects the Doctor, and I wish it had been carried on into later incarnations. Can you imagine if the 10th Doctor had remembered this while on Pompeii? We might have had enough material for a two-parter. While everyone else gets to enjoy an Australian summer for the rest of their lives, the Doctor successfully gets back to his old universe, and again can't convince him to shut the drill down. What a bunch of morons. Gotta love how Starman's got just enough intelligence left to wait until the door opens the whole way before rushing out. I won't talk much about the shutdown scene because it really isn't as dramatic as I feel it could have been. Having some operators off screen shout out, "Shut down!" and the Doctor fiddling with some tools is not exciting. Plus there's some pointless banter at the end of the episode that I skipped over, but hey, it's a great episode. My overall thoughts? Although it has more padding than a push-up bra, this serial is still one of my favourites. I would definitely say that this is quintessential Doctor Who viewing, especially for Jon Pertwee's incarnation. Next time in the Tardis, we see some curly hair, an impractical scar, bad special effects, and some of the funniest moments of the classic series.